Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's show. We are here in my combination of my radio podcasting studio along with being my innovation studio. This week's episode, we're going to take a step back and lay some foundational information, and that is answering the question, what is innovation? And that's what we're going to dig into in today's show. But before we jump into the episode, I have one favor to ask. Go ahead and subscribe right now and be ready to take some notes, because I think you'll find today's show one of those episodes that you want to be ready and available. But as always, everything that we cover in the show will be available in the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. So without any further delay, let's jump into this week's episode. So what is innovation? Innovation is a term that has been so used and so abused, and in some cases misused. And it becomes such part of the natural language that we see it in our advertising, we see it in marketing campaigns, we see it everywhere. And in fact, if you play buzzword bingo, it's probably one of those key squares. If you see the word innovation in an ad or it's used in a business meeting, then you check it off and you yell bingo. Innovation is a term that if you asked 100 people, you'd probably get 100 definitions. What I'm going to try to do is not only to define innovation, but give you some context for it. So, what is innovation? Well, the most simple term of innovation, the definition of innovation is introduce something new. You're introducing something new, something that's not been there before, a new kind of product, a new feature to a product, all kinds, whatever. If it's something new that's being introduced, then that fits into this very simplified definition of innovation. Now, a more expansive definition of innovation would include it's the result of a multi-stage process whereby organizations, teams, individuals take an idea and transform it to create an improved product, a new set of features, an entirely new kind of product, a new kind of service, a new process in order to compete and differentiate themselves in the marketplace. That's a little bit of a more expansive. It's a multi-stage process. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's a multi-stage process whereby organizations transform an idea into improved products, services, or processes. And innovation can be any of those things that allows someone to compete. Now, the core tenet of innovation is make life better. And you've seen some marketing campaigns when they talk about innovation, it's about making life better. That's another simplified variation of this. Now, there's even a more simplified definition, and it's the one I actually use, which is ideas made real. Ideas made real. Now, why do I use this definition? Because ideas that are scribbled in a notebook that never get transformed into a new product or a new service or a process or capability, the value is absolutely zero. Ideas without execution is a hobby, and I'm not in the hobby business. An innovation gets created when the idea is transformed into something that others can use and that others can benefit from. And that is the key cornerstone, the key element about innovation. And innovation is an idea, a solution, something new, a spark that gets turned into a real product, a real service, a real capability. An idea made real. Now, there are different ways to categorize innovations. Can you categorize them and group them, define them, describe them in different ways? Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, such as What are the uses of innovation? Sometimes referred to as the context of innovation. There's another way of defining them as what parts of an organization are impacted or who do innovation. So it could be the R&D department, it could be the marketing, it could be sales, IT, facilities. All are valid in doing work around innovation. Another way to categorize or think about innovation is who's implementing the innovation. Is it an institution? Is it an entrepreneur? Is it an intrapreneur, an organization or individual inside of an organization whose job is to act like an entrepreneur, but inside? And then there's also the definition of levels of impact. Is it incremental? Is it a game changing innovation? There are literally thousands of different ways to categorize innovations. It is a dizzying number. And given the fact that I've spent 30 years of my career, 40 years of my career now, actually, in the innovation game, every time I turn around, there's some new academic paper trying to describe what it is that meets these categories of innovation. And in the context of you can use any number of ways to do this. Now, for me, we're going to boil it down to two different dimensions. And those dimensions are the uses of innovation and the impact from innovation. So, this just to give you a simple mental model when you think about the types of innovations or how you describe innovations. Innovation, just as a simple term, is okay, but you have to put it in the context of how does it impact and how is it used? What's the uses of innovation, or where does innovation get used within the context of people, teams, organizations that want to innovate what it is they do? So we're going to focus and get rid of all the other fluff, and we're going to talk about these two categories, or these are uses of innovation and impact from innovation. So, what are the uses of innovation? What is this context of this definition of uses? So, the uses of innovation kind of break down into a couple of different uh, groupings. One is what we call institutional innovation, and these are the innovations that are deal with organizations that focus on their change in their policies, their standards, their regulation, processes, agreements, business models, ways of organizing, even org structure. How do you innovate your org structure? Institutional practices, relationships with other organizations, partnerships. That's what we mean by the institutional. Now, this is an area that in many cases people don't think about when they think about it in the context of institutional innovation. We think about all the tech and gadgets and those types of things, but institutional innovation is an important area of innovation and an important area to focus on. The other is technological innovation. This is the one we typically think about. So this is everything from new ideas and scientific know-how, expertise, sophisticated processes, chemistries, those types of things. Anything that involves technology, and that's what we typically think about innovation is in this technological innovation piece. And then there's social innovation. And social innovation is focusing on how do we improve positive change in the way of meeting, responding to the social needs of an organization. So it's coming up with improvements and strategies and concepts and ideas and goods or services about having a positive impact. And they can be, dealing with a wide range of individual and community social needs. It's really about focusing on bringing positive social change. It can impact things like employment and quality of life and the ecology and serving, social purposes. So when we think about it, the uses of innovation can be institutional innovation technological innovation, or social innovation. So what are the impacts from innovation? We talked about the one area. The second area we wanted to talk about is what are the impacts of innovation? And what we mean by what do we in the impacts of innovation, those fall into three buckets. One is incremental innovation. Now, an incremental innovation is the series of improvements made to a company's existing products and services. So it's that, make it better, a new feature, the next generation of a processor, the next new thing that you can add onto that product to make it stand out, to be different, have a better competitive response. These typically are lower cost, they're lower risk because you kind of know you got something that you're building upon, something that's successful, and you're incrementally improving it. Again, incremental innovation kind of gets a little bit of a push to the side. People think, "Oh, that's not real innovation." That's not. No, it is. It's real innovation. You can have real impact, and it can have monumental success if you know how to do it properly and you know how to stick with it. The next is breakthrough innovation. Now, breakthrough innovations are things that are going to create new markets, new value networks. Eventually, it disrupts existing markets, displacing established market leading firms, products, alliances. And that's where you kind of go in and you literally create a breakthrough. You're breaking through kind of the normal way the market is operating today, and you create some new approach that comes in that gets the attention of the marketplace, that gets the attention of customers, that becomes and establishes a new player to be a market leader. And that's what everybody wants to do, right? Everybody wants to create breakthrough innovations. And then the third category is disruptive or killer innovation. And what do we mean by a disruptive or killer? Disruptive innovation refers to a technology or any form of innovation, actually, that significantly affects the way a market or industry functions. Now, this does typically involve some element of technology or some element of fundamental, could be science, it could be materials, it's something that you have created that's foundational that others will build on top of, but you get that ground floor, something that you're going to build on top of, and it significantly alters what your competitors, entire industries will be using going forward. The invention of silicon microprocessors, that was a disruptive killer innovation. Now, everybody else has created things like software and browsers and AI on top of these processors, but the processors are the disruptive killer innovation. And what it also is a requirement to qualify as disruptive innovation or a killer innovation is the fact that you create a barrier to entry. You've got such an established position in this ground floor that your competitive success is somewhat baked into the fact that you've got a foundational position. What you have created, it is incredibly difficult for others to compete with. Now, the question I get a lot from this point about the impact, whether it's incremental or breakthrough or disruptive, is there any one that's more important than the other? No, they're all important. Now, I will tell you that you will more likely see incremental innovation. If you are part of an organization, if you are part of a team, and part of something that's been established, you're probably already seeing incremental innovation. You're going out, you're gathering new feature requests from customers, or you're interviewing internal people in your marketing department to help them come up with some way to innovate the way they market the products and services that you make available. Those all tend to fall into incremental. Breakthroughs, much less frequent, higher risk, higher level of investment, yes, there's a bigger reward. Disruptive, few, if any of us, will be able to benefit from a disruptive or a killer innovation. Are the best position you can be in is as others create these disruptives or killer innovations, the new ones, is for you to take advantage of those to create your breakthrough innovations on top of them. Things like creating new artificial intelligent models or something like that. So you will see incremental innovations day in and day out, breakthroughs, not as often. Disruptives, that's generational. That comes around much more infrequently. And so none of them are more important or less important, but what you want to be able to do is to know where you fit into that and know how to play out that whole piece. So the question now is how do uses and impact relate to each other? So we talked about uses, so institutional, technological, or social innovations, and the impact, incremental, breakthrough, or disruptive. How do those two interact with each other? What's the influence that they each have? Well, the way I think about it is I think about it in a 3 by 3, what I call the innovation matrix. Now, the innovation matrix breaks it down into, as you look across the bottom, the horizontal of the 3 by 3 matrix, you see social innovation, institutional innovation, and technological innovation. As you go up the vertical at the left-hand side, when I draw this out on a flip chart in a workshop, I'll label it as incremental innovation, breakthrough innovation, and then disruptive slash killer innovation being at the top. Now, again, what I'm not saying is that there's any one of these that's any more important than anyone else. But how do you use this matrix? How do you use this matrix from the standpoint of understanding your innovation and the work you're doing? Well, one way to do this is if you've got a pipeline of innovations, take your innovations and place them in the grid you think they fit. Are they incremental innovation on the technology side? Are they incremental innovation on the institutional side? Or are they social innovations, meaning you've done some work where you're doing recycling of packaging, those types of things. That's societal innovation or social innovation. So lay out your innovations in each of those grids and kind of see where you're laid out. You may be very much of an incremental on the institutional, you're not doing much on technology, and it may challenge you to meet or offer you to kind of push you to think a little bit differently. How would you make your investments in the innovation space? Another way to use this innovation matrix is as you are coming up with new ideas, what you can do there is take a new idea and lay it into the matrix. Where does it fit? Now, here's a little bit of insight. When you think about this matrix, you may have an idea that actually sits in multiple grids. It's not just has to fit within the border of the one grid, meaning if it's technological, it can't be a social innovation. Not the case. You could do a technological innovation that radically improves, I don't know, let's call it power efficiency of batteries. Okay, that's a technological. But it also has a social innovation impact because it makes batteries last longer, which means we have to buy fewer batteries, which means less batteries going in to landfills or e-waste programs, etc. So an idea that you may be working on could actually sit in multiple locations on the matrix. So again, the innovation matrix, horizontal across the bottom. It is the social innovation, it is the institutional innovation, and it is the technological innovation, the three uses of innovation. Up the left-hand side, up the vertical, starting at the bottom, it's incremental. Next up is breakthrough. And then at the top is disruptive or killer innovation. Now, another way that I've used this innovation matrix is also to look at investment spend. How much money should I be investing in each of these areas. If it's technological and incremental, how much of my budget goes there? How much do I put into institutional? And that all just reinforces the fact that you want to make sure you don't have an innovation blind spot when it comes to this. So, again, the innovation matrix helps put into context what the uses and the impact of innovation. So, my aim here was to give you an easy to understand definition of innovation that you can apply, and to give you a visual, a 3x3 matrix to think about innovation when you're working with the ideas you are or will come up with. Well, hopefully you found that episode to be informative and beneficial. I would encourage you to take a hard look at that innovation matrix. That is a tool that I've developed over many, many years. I use it regularly. I use it also in my coaching and mentoring activities with CEOs and CTOs primarily to help them think about what is the right model, what is the right investment strategy, and where are they spending their time, and are they spending it in the right places? And it's not a one size fits all. It's not to say everybody needs to be doing all different types of innovation. Know where your focus is at, and then lead your team to work in those areas. So, if you would like to get more experience on this and other tools, check out the Disruptive Ideation Workshop. Go over to disruptiveideation.com. You can also check it out over at the Innovators Network. It's theinnovators.network. And you can check out all of the workshops, training courses, all of my materials, all of my workshops. I have licensed those to the Innovators Network, and they have trained trainers there that can help you and your team be successful when it comes to implementing and executing on your innovation strategy. I would also encourage you, if you've got questions, you want to chat, you want to comment, put them in the comments below, put them over on Killer Innovations, or join the conversation over at the Innovators community, and that is theinnovators.community. I hang out there. The community is made up from chief innovation officers of Fortune 500 companies all the way to college students and everything in between. So if you're into innovation, if you're passionate about creativity, if you're passionate about taking an idea you may have and commercializing in that, hop on over to the community, post about it, ask questions, see if someone may not want to be interested in working alongside with you to take your idea and make it real. So hop on over to theinnovators.community. It's free. There's no charge. It's something that we've just put together to bring innovators from around the world together to create a platform and a place where they can share, learn, and encourage each other. So with that, thank you for taking the time. Again, my one favor that I would ask is for you to tell others about the show. So post us a comment over on iTunes or over wherever you may be listening, whether it's iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, we're everywhere. We've been around for 16. We're in the season 16. We're in the middle of year 16. We'll be going into season 17 on March 1st. So we're everywhere. So you can find us, subscribe to us, and give us some feedback. And again, my one favor is to let others subscribe and tell others, share an episode that you may think others can benefit from, share that, and help us get the word out about what we're doing here on this show. And with that, thank you for your time. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.